All right, mic check 1 2 1 2. There's my level.
And we're checking mic 1, making sure the mic works for the Weekly Harvest podcast.
That looks good for me. Okay.
Alrighty.
All right, so here we go. We're going to come down in 3, 2, 1. Well, good week once again. Welcome to the Weekly Harvest Podcast. We talk all things Brandon Wheat Kings, a little bit about the rest of the league in the WHL. My name is Chris Falkavich. You can call me Falko, Director of Game Day Operations, Community Relations with the Wheat Kings. That is Rob Mann, Roby1 Kenobi, Rob Mahone, the radio voice of the Brandon Wheat Kings. How are you this week?
Doing well, thanks, Falko. Good to be back on.
Last week, I was not feeling that well, so that was not due to we were talking about how busy it is around here, and it is busy, but last week I actually had the time. I was not feeling good, so...
Yeah, players are not the only ones who go on the injured reserve around here. We get illness and injury besetting us here, too.
But feeling a lot better, back this week, and it's a good week to be back and doing it because this weekend, a couple of big games for your Brandon Wheat Kings, one of the biggest of the year, Willie's birthday coming up on Saturday. I got my Willie hoodie on for this one.
You planned it out perfectly. I was wondering about that.
I actually wasn't thinking about it until right now as I said it, and I kind of was like, I'm wearing my Willie. I love this hoodie, right?
It's a great hoodie.
It's a great hoodie. But it's Willie's birthday on Saturday night, one of the biggest games of the year that we always have. Great attendance. The kids have lots of fun. The costumes, we'll get into that, but it's going to be a good week. I'm glad I'm feeling better for it.
Absolutely. This is a big week for the Wheat Kings on a number of fronts, not only off the ice, but on the ice, too. You've got two Eastern Conference opponents after you went back-to-back against U.S. division teams. One of those opponents is one you lost to earlier this year that the Wheat Kings weren't happy with their effort in that game.
It was the first loss of the year.
First loss
Saskatoon,
of the year.
Right? I almost wanted to put that into the pregame question to one of the guys. I didn't, but I was thinking about that. I was like, it might be a little too early to think about, revenge, but realistically, there's got to be a bit of a chip on the shoulder when both teams were undefeated and you went in thinking like you maybe should have ended up winning that game when you didn't.
And take that game out of the equation. Think about how good Saskatoon was last year and how some of the games in this building went. Think about that. And honestly, the Wheat Kings probably have a chip on their shoulder with the Blades anyway. A lot of teams do. That's kind of the nature of what Saskatoon's facing this year.
It's also a big day-to-day in the hockey world for a lot of prospects, as I know it's not the draft, but there is a lot of stock and weight put into central scouting and when these lists start to come out. And Rob, I haven't even gone through it in depth yet, but you did a little more today, and there are some Wheat King names on this list.
Absolutely.
Which we kind of knew there's going to be at least a couple of these guys.
We had a pretty clear idea that a few of these guys were going to attract central scouting's attention, but really, there are milestones throughout the year for players who are trying to get drafted, and one of them is to crack various central scouting lists. So the first one is out. There are 3 Wheat Kings on it. You could argue there should have been some others, but that's always an argument. Every team always brings up that point. Roger McQueen is an A-list prospect. I think we were fairly comfortable that was going to be the case. He was named to the CHL roster for the game against the United States National Team Development Program, so that automatically puts him up on a certain pedestal. And then you got Joby Baumuller and Carter Klippenstein who were on there as well, 2 guys we talked about in the very early days of this season's editions of the podcast as being guys in for big years.
And they are ranked, I believe it was, Carter is a C grade, and Joby was a W, which is like a wild card.
Yeah, and Joby's, the way he's playing lately, boy, it feels like he could boost that in a hurry.
If he was able to just pot just a small percentage of the chances that he has had this year, he has had some of the worst puck bounces and puck luck, but when that goal went in, you could even see it on the bench. That home goal goes in, and the bench was so excited for him, almost like it was like a first career goal, almost. Although we did see that happen as well, which we're going to get into here as we go on. It's been a couple of big firsts around the Wheat Kings lately. It was the debut of the first and second round draft picks in this last year draft. Rob Bethal getting into his first Wheat King game, and that was the one in the middle of the week last week. He played on the Wednesday night first. And I don't know about you, Rob. We haven't really talked too much about him since. Even when he was here preseason, we talked about fitting in as a 15-year-old, looking like a man out there, and he looked like he was just perfectly situated to already join the team.
Yeah, take the birdcage out of the equation and put a visor on him, and I think you would have had a hard time singling him out as a 15-year-old in that game. He was around the net. He was always open. He was right in the trenches. He took a hit to make a play on his first Western Hockey League point in his very first WHL game. And it occurs to me, it's probably too early to think like this, but it does occur to me, because Jackson Jacobson's a late birthday, he and Rob Bethal are going to be drafted the same year. There's the potential for those two guys to play together for a very long time, and their styles seem to mesh really, really nicely. That could be a really deadly duo for the Wheat Kings going forward because Prob looked great in his Wheat King debut.
Well, there was a number of lineups that, for line combinations, for a Wheat King fan who's thinking about the future, you could be salivating at some of these. Because on Friday night, then Chase Surkan gets the call up. Now you got your first and your second round pick playing in that same game. And to start the game, the lineup, it was Chase Surkan with Jackson Jacobson and Brady Turco. And I'm just thinking, like, man, what a lineup.
That's a long-term lineup.
What a lineup that is right there, right? Thinking about the future, about what could be, and that game featured another big game from Prob. Took a hit. He obviously was injured on the play. Did not go down. You want to talk about a tough kid as well. That was a big hit to get, try to get stopped on, and it stopped his momentum, but it did not take him out.
No, he was able to stay on his feet, make his way to the bench under his own power. He's going to get looked at, obviously, at that point because you want to be safer than sorry. And boy, doesn't that just sum up the luck the Wheat Kings have had lately? You call up your second-round pick. He has a great first game. He gets an opportunity with what was the top trio that night for a lot of intents and purposes until, of course, another line began to take over a little bit. We can get into that. But just as he's getting that golden opportunity, injury. It's been crazy the last 2-3 weeks here in Brandon with that.
I mean, the game began with 11 forwards and having the 7 defensemen going. Then you've got that happen. Now you're down to 10 forwards. So you're running just over 3 lines. And for them to still pull out that victory on Friday night, that was a huge moral boost for the guys. Because you look around the room and it's been by committee. You look at the first couple games, it was Roger with the hat trick and then Nick Johnson. You're like, oh, both those guys have been out. And it's the rest of the team who's been picking it up and still putting the puck in the back of the net, and it's been a lot of fun to watch with those guys. But those 2 games, Rob, I'm telling you, I think that those are ones that it's tough to gauge sometimes when you're not playing guys who are in your division. You don't know what to expect with the other rosters and the lineups, but what the team came through and did and how they performed versus a team like Spokane, who was here on the Wednesday night, 8-2 coming into that one.
Yeah, and to me, that was the really impressive game.
That was the big
Kings.
one. Seattle then turned around. They got thumped in Regina, I guess, the next night as well. I saw like 6-0 or something. I think
it was 8-0, actually, yeah.
I think they want to forget about that one, too.
But they won last night in Moose Jaw, so, junior hockey.
Who knows, right? Yeah. It's the nature of the road trip. Also, kind of, I don't know how many times this happens. Seattle, we were their first game on the trip out here. So they drove all the way from Seattle, Washington to Brandon, Manitoba, to play that game, then play on their way back. Most of the time, we're somewhere like in the middle of the trip. They play games on the here and on the way back.
Yeah, chatting with their staff, including Tom, their play-by-play announcer, who's been with the team for many years now, he said they made the journey to Lethbridge the first day, because of course there's rules about how far you can travel with a bus driver in one day.
It's just too far.
So they made the journey to Lethbridge the first day, and that was a good 12-plus hours for them. And if you think about how far Lethbridge is from Brandon, that's still 9.5+ hours to go. Like, that's nearly 22 hours of bus travel just to get here. They had time to rest and relax, sure, but 22 hours of bus travel is not something you just shrug off.
They were actually here in time for the Spokane game, because while that game was being played, we noticed that their team showed up and came and actually watched the end of it. So they were in town for Wednesday. So they did get some rest before that game.
And they should have been well prepared with that note for how good the Wheat Kings were going to be, because the Chiefs were doing very well in the U.S. division before they came out here. Thunderbirds would have known that. And to see the Wheat Kings then beat the Chiefs after giving up a 3-goal lead and then rolling back with 3 more.
Right, yeah.
It was almost like they were teasing Spokane, like, oh, you want to come back? Okay, here it is. Come get it, come get it, come get it. Oh, so close. It was bordering on cruel, especially when you consider the Wheat Kings played that game without their leading goal scorer, their leading scorer among defensemen, and 3 other regular forwards.
Well, when you are getting contributions, though, from everybody, that helps. And one of the things that we briefly mentioned earlier, let's talk about more in depth now, you got a goal from not your leading defenseman, but his first career WHL goal, Gio Pantelis. I'm telling you, when Gio potted that in, and I know a number of people took notice of this. Nolan Flaman's, run, shuffle, dance with
goodness.
That smile over to him. If you as a fan have not seen the highlights yet, go back and watch the highlights of both games. They were great. But on the Friday game when Gio gets his first career marker, the look on Nolan Flaman's face says it all. That's what you need to know about the team and how these guys are coming together. They were so happy for him. And of course, he's a great kid.
Absolutely.
And I mean, me and you can't say enough positive things about him. But for him to get that first one, just congratulations. That was awesome.
Nolan Flaman, by the way, has scored goals in 3 straight games now, and he wasn't that happy on any of them. That is the happiest I've ever seen him on the ice. He was skipping back to the net. And if you can imagine skipping on skates, it's hard to do. He managed it all the way back to the net, scooped the puck out from behind Ratzlaff all the way back.
Yeah, they were going to do the headbutt. He's like, wait, gotta get the puck. And then the headbutt had to wait for an extra 20 seconds while they got that one.
Something Matt Calvert noticed on the broadcast, the referees, cognizant of the headbutt tradition, waited to do anything to allow the Wheat Kings to finish up their celebration, which I thought was a really nice touch. So that was a great moment, not only in the year, but generally in the game. Go up 3-0 going into the second intermission. That's a huge difference compared to going up only 2-0, especially since Seattle would eventually get one on the board.
And in that game, Nolan Flammett also, he did score one of his own. And I know that when he skated back, I don't know if you caught this, when he skated back to center ice, he did this. In his profile, I love all the character the guy showed this year. If you're at our game early enough and you can really see it during warm-up, I want to start using him more during the actual game when the guys score. But they have these great profiles that we make, and the last clip of the profile is like where they do their celly or their character movement, something to show off a little bit, some fun. There are some great ones this year. I think a lot of guys are having a lot of fun, and for the first year, there's multiple guys in each other's profiles doing things. But Nolan's by himself. He just does this weird dance and kind of turns around. He did it on the ice. So I don't know what the story behind this dance is, but if we can get Nolan Flammett on the podcast, which we
should one of these days, yeah.
We had a good media day with the guys last week, me and Rob, and talked to the entire team about how to talk to the media, how to deal in the community, fans, just some media training stuff that we kind of go through every year with the team. And we brought up in the meeting there with the guys that we want to do a better job of trying to get everybody on, even for little stories or whatnot. But that's one that for sure, one question only. What's up with the dance? So we're going to get that from Flam.
I want to hear that story. Now, we may have just booked in our next podcast interview guest, because not only is he a good character off the ice, and not only does he have a good story to tell, I'm sure, boy, has he been playing well.
Yeah, all right. That's a good bet.
What a great year he's been having.
I'll make it a note right now. Nolan Flammett. We've
talked ourselves into it here, folks.
We're going to try and get him into there next week. So that was it for the debuts, though, going back to those games. So it's Prob and Chase, and then almost ready for the debuts. It wasn't his WHL debut, but his Wheat King debut. And Rob, when I got the text from GM Marty Murray about this move, I don't know about you, but when I first saw this, I went, huh? Because the name was not on my radar whatsoever as being a Wheat King prospect, and that's Raiden Zacharias, who was quietly listed by the team this fall.
So that is a name that I did know because he was on the Regina Pats list. Of course, the Wheat Kings always play exhibition games against the Pats, so I had gotten somewhat familiar with him because he'd played some exhibition games with Regina, but also because he'd been a teammate of Roger McQueen coming up through the AAA ranks. If you go back to Roger's first and only year of AAA, he and Raiden Zacharias were kind of the two top guns for that Saskatoon Blazers team at the same age. And throughout his career, if you go through Zacharias' numbers, what you find is he keeps piling up assists. Every level, it doesn't seem to matter, whether it's AAA, Junior A this year with the Melville Millionaires, not an easy league to play in. And there we come back to the Melville Millionaires again. We've been talking them up a lot on this podcast lately, but he's been playing with them and is about an assist per game. And that's a tough league as an 18-year-old to play in, especially when there's 8 20-year-olds arrayed against you every night, and it's such a physical league. He and I spoke about that a little bit. So this is a guy with some hockey IQ, some touch around the net, and some ability with the puck, and some familiarity with the Wheat Kings.
And it was his path here. So drafted by the Regina Pats, only got into 4 games in a Pat uniform, and then gets moved to the Everett Silvertips. Now, this is where I got confused. I pull up his profile, and he's in an Everett jersey, but he never actually played a regular season game in Everett. So there must have been some preseason photos that year. But regardless, excited to have him here. He seems like a great kid from what I've already talked to him. But again, when you talk about reinforcements who are at that level and ready and play with some of our guys before, he was a great pickup.
Absolutely, and he's a guy that's got the hockey IQ that the Wheat Kings prize so heavily among their forward prospects. So it's really nice to see him coming in and getting an opportunity at the WHL level, and with the Wheat Kings still nursing some injuries, I would not be the least bit surprised to see him remain in the lineup this weekend.
Time to get into a little bit of injury talk. Now, we are not even privy to all the details, let alone are we going to, even if we did, are we going to spew them all up on a podcast? But here's what we do know for real and what we can just see from practice at least. We've got less and less red jerseys every day, which is a glorious sign.
Oh, yes.
Seeing the fact that Captain Quinn Manti and Carter Klippenstein were at least out of red jerseys, a very, very positive movement forward of those two.
Big sigh of relief for all 3 zones. Like, you think about where Carter Klippenstein does his best work, it's hard to pin down one exact place. He's reliable everywhere. And you miss that when he's out of the lineup. You miss his size, you miss his physicality, you miss his net front presence, you miss his agitating streak, you miss his defensive awareness. You miss him sometimes in the faceoff dot, and it looks more and more like he's going to resume a preseason position he had skating alongside Jackson Jacobson and Brady Turco. We'll see if that line holds, but that's a line where there's obviously a gap in the depth chart right now that he could naturally slot in, and he's played with those guys before. So the more that the Wheat Kings get guys like that back, the more stable they're going to seem, because they're already doing reasonably well with the bodies they have. If some guys can keep it going, reinsertion of guys back into the lineup is going to be huge. And Quinn Manti, we didn't even mention him, but what doesn't he do for the Wheat Kings? What doesn't improve by bringing back Quinn Manti?
We're talking just off the pod about the whole central scouting list and about who teams must have on their radars by this point, besides those kids on the list. And getting Carter Klippenstein back is obviously going to be huge for that. But guys like that, like Quinn Manti, he's playing fantastic. As a 19-year-old, what he's done on the blue line, playing in all situations, putting up points, being the leader, he's got to be at least on a team's radar, you figure.
I would think so. He's got the size, he's got the skating, he's got the snarl. He's been putting up points. I think it's 6 points in 7 games for him so far this season.
He's got the character, too.
He's definitely got the character. He was not named captain by picking his name out of a hat. He was, I have to think, a pretty unanimous choice at that. And he's been so good for the Wheat Kings this year when he's been healthy. And one thing I've really noticed, because it's been definitely noticeable, the mean streak with him is up. He's been... I remember his first couple of years in the league, he was throwing his weight around a little bit. Felt like maybe that wasn't there to the same degree last year. This year, oh my goodness, don't be on the ice at the same time as Quinn Manti if you can help it. He's trying to hurt people. He's been running guys over.
He has laid out a couple of big hits. I don't know if he's trying to hurt people, but he's definitely trying to run people over. So it's been good. Just a quick heads up: if you're watching the video feed of the podcast, the camera on Rob has froze, and look at the look on your eyes on the screen right now.
Oh my goodness, that is.
Even though you talk, you are zoned in on whatever I was saying or disagreeing. I'm not sure, but regardless, audio is still rolling, so that's cool.
I get this look on my face when I'm concentrating. I've learned this when I exercise. I get what I call resting gym face. And sometimes I think, why does nobody come talk to me at the gym? And then I look in the mirror, it's like, oh my, he looks like a serial killer. That's why nobody comes and talks to you at the gym. You look so unapproachable. We covered the games, talked about the debuts. Any other big takeaways from those two games you want to bring up before we move on? 2 big things for me. The guys who needed to step up, stepped up. Yeah. Your Marcus Wins, your Nolan Flamens, your Mateo Michaels. Those guys came through big. The guys who needed to get going got going. And Joby Baumuller's on a point streak now. Caleb Hadlin's got a goal in the last game. Mateo Michaels has 5 points in his last 3 games. To me, what this demonstrated, and what it was a hard way to prove, it was a hard way to have this shown to you, but it really demonstrated beyond any shadow of a doubt that this Wheat Kings team, when they talk about their depth, they're not blowing smoke. This is a deep forward group, and if they can all keep rolling at anywhere near this level as they get healthy, it's going to be a scary forward group.
So I was not out at practice today. I didn't see if they're still in red jerseys, but we're recording this on Wednesday. But as of Tuesday, the only red jerseys still on the ice were number 82, Dominic Peter, and number 39, Easton Oda. And, of course, we're still waiting on the return of Nick Johnson to the ice, so he wasn't in jerseys yet, and then Roger not with the team right now. But down from 6 injuries down to at least 4. Again, we're not confirming. We don't know for sure who's going to be playing this weekend, but at least seeing those guys out of red jerseys, we know that's a huge plus, especially here midweek.
And even guys being on the ice in red jerseys is a positive step.
For some of these guys, for sure it is. For sure it is. People might be concerned about Dominic Peter. Maybe we'll take a quick moment here. I'll tell you, after the game, Dom did not go to hospital. He was here with the team. I talked to him on the way out, actually, and he said he was feeling okay as you can for getting absolutely, run into the boards head first. It was not a great hit. There was supplemental following up on that hit, a 5-game suspension to the player who did that. We won't go into that crazy here, but I'll tell you, scary, scary moment that could have been a whole lot worse, and it is awesome the fact that he's in a red jersey this week skating with the team.
And looked a whole lot worse in the moment. Like, the immediate aftermath of that hit was scary.
You thought it was really bad.
It was really bad, yeah. But he was conscious, walking around more or less his old self after the game. He was joking around a little bit, and now he's skating again, stick handling. I won't make any speculations about his availability this weekend. I am very not a doctor.
There are still concussion protocols that the league, of course, has to follow. It's the safety of the players first. It comes to all of this stuff. And I know there's certain tests they have to do. maybe we should have talked about this ahead of time with our guest. Our guest this week is athletic therapist Zach Hartwick, who is, of course, with the team for a number of years. It's an interview we recorded yesterday. So as we talk about this, and I'm thinking about that one really specific question we didn't bring up, but that would be one for him maybe, is about just how long or what the tests are for the concussion protocol. But regardless, we know that there's certain things he has to hit. But whatever it is, just the fact that he can be on the ice under the bright lights with the team, with the noises. Sometimes with concussions, guys can't even leave the room. They have to be in a dark room. So you know that he's feeling good.
Absolutely. Some of these guys, if they have a severe enough head injury, they are wearing tinted sunglasses for years afterwards because bright lights are just going to be too much for their eyes. So for Dom to be on the ice, even in a red jersey, is a pretty important step forward.
For sure is. So coming up next for the team, it is a huge weekend coming up this weekend as we get set for the Saskatoon Blades. First time this year, as we talked about, Willie's birthday. Before we kind of get into those and wrap up the pod, it is time for us to get into our guest this week. He is the athletic therapist for the Brandon Wheat Kings. Joining us here in the Wheat Kings studio yesterday, it's Zach Hartwick. And now live here in the Wheat Kings studio this week on the Weekly Harvest, our guest, the athletic therapist of the Brandon Wheat Kings, as we talked about, one of the busiest guys in the organization right now, which says a lot in this building, especially in this room. But you have been very, very busy. It's Zach Hartwick. Zach, how are you?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on the podcast. We were kind of joking. Some people were giving you a bit of grief being on here this week that we were, scraping the bottom of the barrel. But no, you know what? There is a lot of very, interesting aspects of junior hockey. One of the big ones is taking care of the guys off the ice, and that's been a big topic of conversation around this team lately. So, we're not going to go into crazy specifics, but this is a perfect time as any to have you on. So, appreciate you taking a few minutes today.
Yep, no problem.
Let's kind of go back to the start, though. When we talk about how we want to get into hockey, it's kind of a different side of it. We're putting on the games, but how did you get involved with this? First of all, was it just doing it in sports, or was it always hockey specifically you wanted to work in?
Yeah, originally, when I was 16, I broke my leg playing hockey, and then kind of going through the whole rehab process of that kind of got me interested in that side of it. I was kind of looking into physio, or didn't really know what athletic therapy was at the time. Then when I was in university, I did a placement with a club football team. Kind of saw that side of it. Got pretty interested in it. Worked with the Laurentian University hockey team my fourth year there, and I was like, yeah, this is for me. And then I went on and did a athletic therapy program at Sheridan College in Ontario.
Now, whether it's hockey, broadcasting, coaching, there is a certain need to progress through the ranks. And you and I actually stopped in a very similar place on our way through the ranks. Our paths have actually professionally crossed before. We just didn't know it at the time. How did you end up with the SJHL's Melville Millionaires?
It was kind of, I just graduated in 2018 and kind of looking for someone to give me a start, and applied to Melville, and they got interviewed there and they gave me the job. So I packed up and headed out to Saskatchewan.
Laurentian to Melville, that had to be just a little bit of a culture shock.
Yeah, didn't see that one coming, but so I'm used to kind of small town things, so Melville wasn't a crazy culture shock.
Oddly, the Millionaires now come up on this podcast, like at least I think 2 of the last 3 podcasts now or something.
Yeah, we're not
I don't know
just
why
we're not just shilling for Melville, I promise. Like, we do have other SJHL
I did not
teams
hear
we're
that story
aware
before
of.
though about you guys doing that. What was the year difference though? You guys weren't there at the same time though.
Well, I was with the Estevan Bruins from 2017-18 right through to the COVID year 2020-21, and I think, was it the last 2 years prior to COVID you were with Melville? 19-20 for sure you were there, because we knew some of the same people.
I was in the 18-19 season in Melville and the 19-20 season.
And at this time, the Bruins and Millionaires were playing each other. Jeez, we must have played each other 20 times in those 2 years. So I'm looking across the press box at the bench. Who's that guy? Who's the athletic therapist? Now I know.
Now we're roommates on the road.
Exactly.
There would be a couple of questions I got about that coming up in a few minutes. So you get into Brandon. This is your first, obviously, major junior experience. What was that like showing up here?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is just the facilities. Kind of Melville's rink was fairly new at the time, but just the kind of like the gym area we have here, the room obviously was just renovated when I got here, and just kind of like the modalities and whatnot that we have available, like even the doctors we have available to us at kind of any time was a big difference.
It's not just the fact that you're coming to the major junior level. You were coming in at a time where we were kind of fresh out of COVID at that time. In fact, at that year, I believe, COVID-19 was still very much on the minds of the Western Hockey League. What was that transition like, having to deal with a global pandemic on top of everything else?
Yeah, it was a lot of kind of tracking guys' symptoms. We had an app they had to do every time before they came to the rink.
I've mentally blocked out the app.
I was going to say, did I just trigger a PTSD reaction there?
They made us do that too.
Yeah, so
up here in the office. We were nowhere near the players, and we had to do that app every day to come to work.
It was a lot of chasing guys down to make sure they did it, and then if anything ever came up, it was get a test, go home, kind of stay away from everything. So it was a lot of extra kind of work to start that we don't have so much anymore, but it was what it was.
So this is easy now, in other words.
Not really.
Yeah. When we made the video that we shared, like, with our new prospects, that kind of talked, to them about our organization. Nothing like too crazy insider info, though. For those who are wondering, basically we send this video out that explains who the organization is, right? So the kids know about the history, but about what they can expect when they get here. A chunk of that video that's really impressive to me is what you just kind of talked about in brief, but can you kind of like tell our fans more in depth, like what we kind of talked to the players about? It's more than just having a better gym. We have some gym equipment in there that is specialized for their training, and then you have some what do you keep calling it? The commodities or the
modalities.
Modalities.
It's pretty much anything.
That's like an athletic therapist word you guys like to use, but that's anything that basically helps a player, right?
Yeah, it's like heat, ice, or ultrasound, or stim, or anything like that.
And when I walk in there sometimes to go get a player, they got these big puffy things on their legs, and what is all this stuff that you get to work with the guys on?
Yeah, those are the Normatex. Those are more for recovery, so they kind of help kind of pump out the lactic acid and stuff in the guys' legs, and kind of just flush their legs so don't feel as heavy.
Are they like a massage pulsating air pant, or is it just more like they get tight, like when you put your arm on the cuff at Shoppers and you want to see what your
a little bit like that.
Is.
They got different sections that kind of they pump up, and then they kind of start at the foot and kind of work their way up to bring all the.
It looks crazy odd, and I know this might be a little bit too weird for people listening. Like, what's he talking about? I don't know what this thing is. Like a giant airbag that looks like a pair of pants, basically.
Imagine snow pants, imagine snow pants with a snow pant material boot on the end, and you're kind of picturing what the players wear. And I noticed, by the way, that they're extremely popular with the goaltenders. You'll see those guys wearing them pretty much after every game, because they've got to reset their legs pretty much.
So that's kind of what it is. It's just to basically give pressure to the legs in certain parts to promote the blood flow back.
Yeah, kind of just flushes everything out to get rid of all the lactic acid and any stuff that's causing them harm, sort of thing. So.
In the locker room, a couple big changes with the renovations. There's now a couple of tubs. Mm-hmm. Now that's for cold and hot?
Yeah, they're both cold and hot. The guys love those. They kind of turns into a spa sometimes, it seems like, but they're pretty useful for them.
A little more hot tub than cold tub sometimes?
Sometimes, yeah.
I always say you have to start researching a subject to realize how much you don't know. The first thing you learn about anything is how much you don't know. When it comes to the science of recovery, I think there might be a few of our listeners realizing, oh my goodness, there's so much I don't know. How often are players supposed to be using these tools? When are they supposed to be using them for optimal results? Oh, and they've got to get right back on the ice again the very next day. How much is that science of recovery driving kind of everything you do?
Yeah, and it's come a long way in the last few years too. So it's big, especially with us. Like, we're on the bus for hours at a time, so we take those like Normatex and heat packs and massage guns and everything on the bus with us, so guys can, if we have like back-to-back or a 3-and-3 where we're driving 3-4 hours to another city, they can kind of get that process started kind of right after the game on the bus, kind of get in the hotel, get a good sleep, and restart, do it all over again.
Sometimes I'm sure you've got to be the bad guy too, because we have a room full of hockey junkies down there who want to be on the ice an awful lot. Sometimes I'm sure you've got to tell these guys, no, today is an off day. You don't go on the ice.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Some guys don't see the good in just kind of resting, but as they say, rest is a weapon, and sometimes guys got to take advantage of that when they get it, because our schedule right now is relatively light compared to what it's going to be in the second half, so kind of take advantage of what you can now and make sure your body's ready for later on.
A lot of home games right now in the stretch, but you brought up a good point, that the fact that on the bus rides, you can have long stretches of the guys not being able to really move, basically, and then you can show up sometimes a couple hours before the game. What's that like on the trip? Have you ever had the guys do stuff on the bus? Has there been like pre-planned stuff? Like, guys, we can't just sit here for 5 hours.
No, they're usually pretty good. With our bus, the seats are kind of spread out. They bring mattresses and air mattresses and stuff so they can kind of lay out and they can stretch or just get up and move around a bit.
You've never had to do like a mid-bus yoga session is what you're saying on the way.
No, I think that'd be pretty tough for us to
I have yet to see jumping jacks on the bus. It hasn't happened yet. Yet.
Yeah.
When the guys show up, like before a game, is there stuff that you have to work on all the way up until game time with some of these guys, or is a lot of it sort of leading up to and then just post-game stuff?
A lot of it we try to get done in the mornings if there's anything. Kind of when they show up for game time, they kind of have their own routine of their own stretches, and then we have our kind of team warm up, their meetings, and there's a couple guys that part of their routine is coming to see me kind of right before games just to get a little tune up before they get dressed, but most of the guys are kind of do their own thing.
And then post-game, who knows, right? I mean, things always change, right? So during the course of a game, one thing that, people will see you and Scooter, when something happens, you guys are the guys out there, especially sprinting to go and help. What's that like when something does happen to one of our players or to one of your players, and just that thought process, and what do you look for before? I know like it's a thing in wrestling, it's a thing in hockey. When you see the trainer throw up the X to try and call the doctor, that things are serious. So just, going in the serious moment, what's that like jumping the boards, and what's some of the first things that you're looking for?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of, I guess, see the play happen, kind of process what happens, what kind of hit or whatever the guy took, and then kind of have an idea going out there what could be wrong. And then first thing right away is kind of block the head, make sure, because that's the first thing you look for is any sort of neck or head injuries or anything like that. And then just kind of talk to the guy, see what's hurting, kind of move around, mostly check like the spine and stuff like that. So if there's anything not so right with that, then it's kind of fist in the air, just activates our emergency action plan, and doc comes down, EMS is called, and kind of Scooter and Rob and everyone kind of jump into action. They all have their own roles, and we've unfortunately had to do it a couple times, and it's went fairly smoothly.
Different Rob, by the way, should clarify.
Yes,
You're not going to see me rappelling down from the press box, as awesome as that would be. I would be less than helpful in that scenario. I'm just going to say it.
Yeah. So your symbol is the fist in the air.
Yeah.
Is that like a league-wide thing that everybody has that standard?
Yeah, we've kind of went to that. Before they kind of had the X just to bring the doctor down, but now it's kind of either kind of all or nothing sort of thing. So
right,
fist in the air, doc comes down no matter what, and if we need EMS, we call EMS. Sort of thing.
And those are the dramatic ones, the ones that you see, hopefully not very often. But there is work for you absolutely every game. Guys take big hits, guys block dots, guys take cross checks. What can you kind of do in the moment for the guys who are staying in the game, but who might need some help getting back closer to 100% after they take a blow of some kind?
Yeah, a lot of it is like, depending on how much time's left in the period, if kind of they can battle through sort of thing, and then we can work on stuff in the intermission. Or if it's worse than that, we have to go to the room, see what we have to do. If we have to tape something up or anything like that, then we can do that quick, go to the room and bring them back, depending on what kind of game scenario depends on.
Yeah, I was going to ask, because sometimes it's just being physical in the game. It's just going to be bumps and bruises and I'm sore. Well, we got to tape you up and you're back out there. There's not a whole lot you could do, I suppose, on that. But
no,
if it's things like muscle cramps or of sorts, you must have to deal with that.
Yeah. Like block shots and stuff. Sometimes it's just a matter of they have to sit there for a second and just a stinger kind of shake it off a bit, and then they'll be back. Other things, like you said, like especially at the start of this year, it was really warm in the building, so we had some cramping issues and whatnot. So we've got like electrolyte salts on the bench, which guys just kind of take straight. They don't taste very good, but they work. And then we have other stuff like before, after games to taste a little better that kind of help rehydrate them.
And you're in a situation where, and it's a bit of an awkward position. The players want to play. Sometimes, I'm sure, even if they're hurt. Coaches want their players to play. They want to have everybody possible available to them. Sometimes you've got to be that bearer of bad news. What kind of relationship do you have to have with the coaches in order to be able to say to them, I know the power play needs to run, but this guy cannot go tonight?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just explaining what the injury is and sort of like this, like putting him on the ice right now isn't going to benefit him or the team or anything like that. It could just hinder his recovery and kind of put him out a little longer. So it's like we have a good trust with the coaching staff. They kind of understand, like, if I say someone can't play, then they're not gonna fight me on that.
Right now, there are a few guys who can't play, and they are not fighting you on that. So without us going into specifics about any injuries, there are a couple lately that you've had to deal with that just do require above and beyond the normal sort of maintenance. What's that look like in the life of an athletic therapist on any given day, working between yourself and these guys with what kind of equipment we have and then with the doctor's appointments?
Yeah, I guess right now, especially with the number of guys, is just sort of a time management thing to make sure we have guys showing up so I can get stuff done and then move on to the next guy. And depending if guys are in school, they have to go to school and then kind of get stuff in before practice. And then we have a good relationship with Cam McGee and Drayson Cowan at Dynamic Physio, and they help out a lot with some acupuncture and stuff that we don't have access to here, which helps out a lot. So it's just a matter of kind of timing out the day to make sure we can get everyone the care that they need.
Now, you mentioned we're not going to go into specifics, but unfortunately we did get some confirmation today that is now very public that at least one Wheat King is going to be out for at least the next month, because we know now that Roger McQueen is not going to take part in the CHL versus National Team Development Program Top Prospects game at the end of November. Sometimes, do you ever find yourself having to be almost in the role of counselor for these guys? Because you're dealing with young men who have goals, expectations for themselves, dreams at the next level, and then you've got to tell them, hey, you're on the shelf for the next couple months.
Yeah, that's the worst part of the job, pretty much. Like, I want to see all these guys on the ice, but at the end of the day, like, we have to do what's best for them. And yeah, you kind of have to go into the role of like it's going to be okay. Like, we'll get through this sort of thing, and it's the best thing for you right now, and kind of we'll figure it out and make sure everything's all good.
We have got a lot of home games in a row right now before we do have to go on some of the road trips, including the big trip this year. What's that like from your standpoint, having all these home games in a row, having the guys around here, and then being gone for long stretches?
I mean, with our schedule is very good right now for what we have injury-wise. With mainly playing on weekends, we can kind of get a lot of rehab done during the week and hopefully have guys back for the weekend. On the road, it's obviously a little tougher. We don't have the same facilities and stuff. You kind of have to sometimes lean on other therapists just to get some supplies or whatnot that you might not be able to carry with you on the road. But everyone around the league's pretty good with, like, we're not, like, we work for our team, but we're kind of in the role of we want all the players to be healthy, sort of thing.
It's a nice bit of, camaraderie that I actually see in your guys' industry. You're there for the benefit of the players. Yes, you work for the Wheat Kings, like you said, but every athletic therapist is there because they want to keep the players healthy, and that I think is a really nice thing. Yeah,
for sure. It's the same thing, like the relationship that me and Scooter have, and then with the other kind of therapists, it's nice, and the equipment managers as well. I mean, sometimes you don't see some teams very often, and sometimes just when they come into town, it's nice to kind of hang out and chat a bit.
It's a bit like a fraternity where is this crew of people who are behind the scenes putting on the hockey games for the players, right? The players in junior hockey, it changes at least every 4 years, if not sooner. The complete team changes over. Sometimes you get personnel who stay for longer than that, and it's the same thing. These relationships that you see these people, and it's this long lasting professionalism, which is very cool to see and also hear about from your standpoint, because you guys are on the road. I only get to do all the home games, but you guys get to travel. So you guys are roommates on the road. So we're going to bring this up right now. What is the most annoying thing about but when you're on the road and you guys are traveling and doing this together, we asked the players, so Zach, I'm going to ask you from your standpoint, what's your favorite building to go into? Is it also the NHL rink because you get some cool stuff, or is there another rink that has some great visitor rooms for you?
I mean, Rogers Arena is obviously pretty cool, being kind of brand new, and their facilities for us are unbelievable. Like,
Even for the visitors, really awesome in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just have there's so much space and everything there.
Pre-game meal doesn't hurt either. I'll say that for Rogers.
Yeah. MedHat has a very, very good visitors room. We haven't had much luck there, but the room's very nice.
Yeah.
Where else?
Now, I like to bring up Moose Jaw from a broadcaster's perspective, but when I go down there to the dressing room area, it does seem a little in close.
It's not too bad. They have, like, the room's big. I have my own separate room. The coaches have their own separate room. Scooter stuff's out in the hall. It's not too bad for us, yeah.
Is there one rink that you're just like, oh man, I got no room here?
When we're in PA, I mean, it's an older rink and there's just not as much space there. But the actual room for the guys isn't too bad. They have a lot of space, but Scooter and I kind of share this little room together.
You got a broom closet together. It is a cubby. That is a small one.
Siz, Cliff, next trip up, please make it even smaller for him.
But
see, you say that, but they'll do it. you know they'll do it.
I love those guys.
Can't beat the post-game meal in PA, though.
Oh, no, the post-game meal in PA is excellent.
And they've also got the new hotel there, I hear, which we stayed at the last couple of trips, which is very nice.
Yeah, and it's in an area where it's going to be really something when it's finished. Like, it's still developing. We're kind of getting to see it unfold as we go. But when that area is nailed down, it's going to be a nice little spot.
Yeah, that's awesome for PA. So this is now the longest you've been with one hockey team then, I guess, right?
Yeah.
You've been now for, what, this is your fourth season? Fourth season with the team. What's your goals and aspirations? Like, is hockey where you wanted to be and where you want to stay?
Yeah, I'd like to stick with hockey as much as I could. I actually had an opportunity to work with the Rough Riders a couple of years ago, kind of after my second year in Melville. But the COVID happened, season got canceled, and then kind of things didn't work out, and I ended up here. So pretty happy with how everything worked out.
Well, love having you here, and love that you've been around for a bit, because for a couple of seasons, we were just a straight feeder system for athletic therapists to the AHL and then to the NHL. And I know that you've had opportunities in Cannes. You've also fallen in love. So that is also going to help, I think, keep you here maybe for a little bit, which I'm appreciative of. And I'm sure our players are too, because it's nice to have that common link over the years. How difficult was it for you coming in year one just to get caught up on the roster and the background compared to how you are now, that some of these guys you've now seen since they were 16 years old?
Yeah, I mean, that aspect's kind of cool, like seeing like Roger and Charlie Hads get drafted my first year and then kind of work their way up through here. And it's nice, like, year to year, knowing what you're coming into sort of thing, like the people you're working with, that sort of thing. And then, like, first year, it's like try to get to know who the players are, kind of what their injury history is, sort of things like that. And then now that I've been here, I know kind of exactly what everyone's had throughout their career.
It's the nature of the beast. We work with these guys for 4 years. You see them go from 16-year-olds to 20-year-old veterans in a lot of cases.
Yeah. It's like for Quinn, my first year was his 16-year-old year, and now like see him as the captain, stuff's kind of cool.
All right, you guys are on the road. You're in the hotel. There's nothing to do. What's on the TV? Like, what are you two watching together?
So usually Rob's reading a book, and I'm trying to find Seinfeld on TV.
That's actually, yeah. Like, you've got control of the remote, and I'm A-okay with it, because I'm generally either trying to find the nearest gym like a psychopath, or I've got some World War II history book on the go that I'm 200 pages into.
Are you just too good for the hotel gyms, or you just don't want to...
Not enough weight.
Yeah, not enough weight. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Oh man, one of your other teammates besides rooming with Rob, it is you and Scooter. You and Scott Halady are kind of like a two-headed monster down there, controlling the bench, dealing with these guys behind the scenes. We've had Scott on the podcast, I think, a couple of times over the years, and we've kind of heard from his standpoint of how he kind of deals with the players, but what's that like, you having to work with him? Because we all know he's a character and he's a whole lot of fun, but I can imagine that, I mean, even from us, there's never a dull day dealing with Scooter, working with him, but what's that like when you guys are in the trenches together?
Oh, it's fun. Scooter's great to work with. It's funny, it's kind of like a good cop, bad cop sort of thing, where the players, like, obviously he's trying to keep equipment and stuff in line, and they'll break a stick and scared to go ask Scooter. So
I was gonna say I know who the good cop is.
Yeah,
I know.
I think everybody figured that out the second that he said who's playing what role here.
so they'll come to me and ask something, and I was like, no, Scooter does the equipment stuff. You got to go talk to him.
And there's that moment of terror on their face. Do you kind of enjoy that? Maybe just a little bit.
A little bit, and then just kind of follow them and see how it goes.
Just leaning around the corner. Just, Scooter, that's a heck of a string of words there.
Yeah.
So next up, we have got the home games coming up this weekend. One of the big ones is Willie's birthday. So last thing before we go, when we're doing fun stuff like this in the crowd and you're on the bench, how much are you paying attention to any of the promo things? Are you paying attention to what's happening on the old fan cams and all the different promos that we're throwing out? Or are you like the players, sometimes they're too cool for it and they're like, I had no idea?
No, if there's nothing going on injury-wise, then I kind of see what's going on.
You're paying attention?
See what's happening, yeah.
Did you see us put Marty on the hoser cam?
We did, yes.
That's come up.
I came into the coach's room afterwards, and that came up, and it's, Falko, did you do that? And I had to play completely dumb, like, no, I had no idea we were going to do that. Yeah, of course. But, hey, if you wear plaid to a Wheat King game, then you might end up on the hoser cam,
you're just
right?
asking for it, yeah.
I'm
You're asking for it at
safely
that
hidden
point.
behind the camera. I'm up in the press box, so I can wear my plaid suit, and it's okay.
Nah, we're going to find a way one of these times. We're going to make it happen.
I do have one thing for you before we go, though. We can't get into specifics, but I know one of the things a lot of Wheat Kings fans will think of when they see your name on a guest list is possibly an update. Without getting into too many details, might we have some good news this Friday?
We're hoping to have a few guys back in the lineup. Yeah.
How many red jerseys are hanging up in the locker room these days? Is it
less and less every day?
okay?
Which is good. Guys are getting into full.
Is there less than 5 now?
There is less than 5.
Well, then that's good news, Wheat King fans, because there's been at least 5 for a couple of weeks now, it seems.
Yeah.
I had somebody asking me
great.
how many
That's
guys
great.
were injured, and I said, well, we've got 6 regulars out and their jaw hit the floor. It was like, yeah, it's been a rough couple weeks.
And you know what? In that time, I mean, kudos to the guys to the guys who are being called up and playing those minutes and those roles, because we've seen some great wins here on home ice in that time still. What's the mood in the locker room when this is happening, Zach, right now? Like, that's something that me and Rob already been kind of privy to. But, after the game, this last game, for example, versus Seattle, we finished the game with 10 forwards on the ice. What was the locker room like after that one? Was it almost like a big game atmosphere?
Yeah, they're pretty excited to win that one. I mean, they know what's going on. It's kind of next man up sort of thing, and there's been a couple guys that have really filled in that role. It sucks to have. It always seems to happen like this, that everyone gets injured at the same time, but kind of gives some other guys a chance to step up and kind of be ready for that role for kind of later in the season.
Zach, thank you so much for taking the time here today and talking to us. Appreciate it.
Yep, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Now back here live with Falko and the frozen Rob, if you're watching the video screen. Audio-wise, you're still here.
Yeah, I feel like Mr. Freeze got a hold of me somewhere in the... I can't do an Arnold Schwarzenegger voice right now. I'm trying to think of a pun, and my mind is scattered.
That's fine. That's fine. There's not games till the weekend. You got to rest. You got to save up. Okay. We have got games on Friday night. It is going to be the Saskatoon Blades we talked about coming into town. Willie's birthday on Saturday night. Okay, so for the parents who are listening to this, Willie's birthday, one of the biggest nights of the year for the kids, because it's our Halloween game, right? Like, that's really the whole thing. It's the Halloween game. So when you come to the game, you get to wear your costumes. Just a reminder that there's no weapons allowed with the costumes. It's basically the same rules we have at school. But come and have lots of fun that night. There is going to be indoor trick or treating. And we have got these signs that are going to go up. I'm holding up a little piece of paper. There's going to be a lot bigger. There's like 12 by 18, but we're going to have these big boards up at 10 different locations around the arena and handing out maps as well for the kids. So there's going to be 10 different spots for the kids to go around and get candy beginning at 6 p.m. So we have indoor trick-or-treating. It's, of course, Willie's birthday, so our friends at Heritage Co-op, we are going to have 500 birthday cupcakes here, Rob. Wow. Save your calories that day, my friend.
Oh, it's a cheat day.
It's going to be a big cheat day, as we got cupcakes, 500 of them here for the first 500 fans. We are going to be having the mascot party. More and more mascots are RSVPing every day. We love it. It's going to be a lot of fun for that. Jumperoo Brandon's going to be here for the kids with the bouncy castles. And just everything about Willie's birthday is already a ton of fun, but every year it keeps growing and getting bigger and bigger. And this year, we added more trick-or-treating spots. We've added more mascots. We're doing more fun. We want to see a whole lot more people, too.
Absolutely. It would be awesome because as of yet, the newly refurbished West Toba Place does not have its first sellout under its belt. But this weekend seems like an excellent time to mark a historical occasion in this building. By the way, you looked over here right there. I've got to say, the fact that you're describing like trick-or-treating and kids having fun and everybody having a great time and I look just furious in the frozen screen capture there is absolutely exceptional. I look like I'm just thinking, hey, you kids, get off my lawn. Back in my day, we couldn't have fun one day if we had fun the day before. I do not look on board with fun in that frozen caricature.
At all. And I cannot get the camera to not be frozen right now, so we're just going to let it ride, and you're just going to be looking like that while we talk about something fun like Willie's birthday.
There's a meme waiting to happen there. They turned Casey Bryant into a meme when he was looking at his laptop.
I've already turned you into a meme a couple times behind the scenes.
More than once.
Behind the scenes, so maybe I bring that up on the podcast one time.
I like making memes. I'm memeable, apparently.
You definitely are.
Yeah.
You definitely are. Radio guys always are.
That's very true, actually.
Whoever the voice or face of a franchise is, they're always going to be memeable.
I don't know anyone who isn't.
Because you're the one that's, again, broadcasting in the public eye for the games, right? So
yeah, now that I think about it, I don't know of any non-memeable broadcaster.
It's also just super fun to make fun of buddies, right? So
this is true, yeah. And you've got the digital tools to do it more effectively than most people do.
I'm the go-to guy for making fun of each other.
Yeah, exactly.
We have got a couple of very cool community things coming up I want to quickly mention to look out for the Wheat Kings out in the community. We are going to be starting our school visits here coming up very shortly, thanks to TD going back into the classes, reading to all the kids again this year. We have got our hockey visits going to be starting up very soon. We have also got for the first time, we're going to be doing this thing called Coffee with the Captains at Rotary Villas next week. Did you hear about this yet?
I hadn't heard the details.
I love this
Break
idea.
It down.
So Rotary Villas contacted me, and they want to start doing this thing called Coffee with the Captains, where we have our captains go to Rotary Villas, which for those who don't know, that's one of our local senior homes here in town, and go and talk to the senior citizens and have a coffee with them during morning coffee. Do a little Q&A period, a little session like that. We always do school visits, and we do other visits. We should go and visit those fans too. So we're going to start with Rotary Villas and then find out some other ones. But that's, again, we already are one of the most community active teams in the WHL. We're always adding. There's always new stuff coming. So that's going to be a fun one, I think, next week.
Absolutely. And speaking to fans in the concourse, I've learned very quickly that some of the most ardent supporters of the Wheat Kings are from those community homes. Like I know on game nights, the broadcast is always on there. A number of the residents are really big fans of the team. There are a lot of them who can still come out to games, do so on a regular basis. And the support we get from the older generation in Brandon tends to be really, really direct and really, really appreciated.
We've visited personal care homes before, and you know what's fun is some of the everybody has a Wheat King story, right? Everybody has their favorite Wheat King stories. Some of those stories they go back to the original days, and for our players to kind of hear that sometimes, it is pretty cool. So that's gonna be another one that's coming up here that we got starting. And again, we're always gonna be doing stuff in the community, but look out for us on social media as we start all of our public visits and start to announce them. And on top of that, we have got our Coats for Kids program that's going to be wrapping up here. So Willie's birthday is going to be the last night for this. If you're coming to the game, bring a warm coat. Looking for any size. If we're talking about toddler sizes through all youth sizes, even like adult XXL. There's some big high school kids who got to stay warm here this winter. So let's make sure if you got any gently used winter coat to please bring it to either the game on Friday or the game on Saturday. That'll be the final game that they're going to be here the United Way at our game collecting that. And then we turn the calendar and we have a lot coming up in November that we'll talk about in future podcasts, but we have food drives and different things. Of course, the Teddy Tukin Mitt Toss, which when we talk about the big games of the year, let's be honest, you got home opener. Next up, the big one is Willie's birthday. Then we've got the Teddy Tukin Mitt Toss. Then you have your New Year's game and then awards night. There's a couple big promo nights in there, but realistically, the big 5-6 games a year, one of those is this Saturday. So
absolutely,
if you got a date circled, it's that one.
And the promo nights, they interchange. They might be different year to year. They'll be big nights, no question, but you can't necessarily pencil them in right away as far back as May.
Yeah, exactly.
But Willie's birthday, this that's
one,
coming.
You pick the weekend before Halloween, right? Whatever that weekend is, boom, that's Willie's birthday.
It's
just
coming.
because that's the perfect time to do it, right? Same thing with Teddy Bear Toss. It's whatever that Friday or Saturday works in that early December game, right? So there's certain things, but regardless, I hope it's circled on your calendar. If you listen to this podcast, it probably is. If you're listening this far into the podcast, I guarantee that it's going to be on your calendar one way or the other. So whether you can be here in person and watch it, or whether you're listening to Rob on the radio, or whether you're watching the stream, a mix of both, whatever it is, we appreciate and love the support. We'll be back, I believe, next week. There should be nothing holding us back, knocking on wood here, that
fingers crossed.
We shouldn't do it. And we'll talk to Nolan Flaman maybe next week.
Hopefully so. You can't see it from behind my grim visage there, but I am close. I am crossing my fingers.
Yes. So let's hope that everything goes well next week, and we can talk about another couple of, I'm not even gonna say it, but a couple of at least good games.
Absolutely.
On home ice here this weekend as we continue this long stretch of home games.
We are firm believers in the press box jinx in this office, and the press box extends to the office.
It does. So let's keep that going. Have yourself a fantastic week, King Country, and we hope to see you on Friday and Saturday, and then talk to you right back here next week on the Weekly Harvest. Have a good one. Cheers.